Hey, good afternoon. Oh, there's a garage. The basement door was open. I figured you probably wouldn't need to see that. Um. Anyway, so here I am again talking about this death experience deal, and I was just going to go further with it. I've had a couple of people talk about their interest in it and talking about maybe possibly their experience. So I figured I'd get a little deeper into actually what transpired when this all did happen. So it was a while ago. It was 20 years ago, and I was up in the attic, and I was laying on a vent pipe, which is metal, which is perfectly grounded, and I was putting in some lights in the ceiling for the dining room for the holidays, and I was under the impression that the power was off. So what happened was what I call my perfect storm. I had pliers. I was pouring sweat. I was laying on a vent pipe and I reached to the wire to twist the wires together, not knowing that I didn't have gloves on, that I was soaking wet and wet right to the pipe, but also that the pliers had a cut in the rubber insulation. When I did, I had the early Christmas tree lighting, which was me. I lit up like a Christmas tree, and it was not so good. So I was in it was amazing the pain as I laid on this pipe. So all I can equate it to is I remember back in school we did an experiment where we took a hot dog and we took a wire and put a nail on each wire and stuck it in the hot dog on either end and plugged it in and it cooked the hot dog. Well, I was said hot dog. Oh, there's Cody. Hi, Cody. There he is over here. Oops, this side. There he goes. And I lit up and the electricity with 30 amp circuit was running through me, through the pliers, through me, and back out the other side to the wires that I was holding that was also attached. So it was incredible pain and such pain I couldn't take anymore. I believe that's when I expired, so to speak. And I went and I cried out in my head to God in this pain. I said, God, why? Why me? Why? And all of a sudden, I got this sudden feeling like I was floating, floating kind of like it's weird. It was like, you see the pictures of a really starry, beautiful night full of stars and the Milky Way and the colors. Well, that's kind of what it felt like. There was a breeze and I was just drifting along. And as I cried out in my heart to God, um, which let me preface this a little bit too, by the way. I've been a Christian for years before that. This did not create a Christian conversion. I did not have that kind of awakening that drove me to it. Now, I'm not saying that hasn't happened to people. That's not what happened to me. So anyway, so I cried out, and all I can tell you was in front of me was what looked like maybe to me maybe like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings or someone like that. It was a white robe, gold sash, sandals, white beard, white hair, and the wind was blowing. And I cried out, and when I saw this in my head, I said, "I love you," and he responded back, "I love you too." And I said, "Oh, and by the way, this is nice on my knuckles, isn't it? This boo boo I have here, by the way, that's pretty ugly." But anyway, um, he said, "I love you too." And I said, "But why? Why now?" I said, "Why? It's Christmas time. My boys are growing up. They're out doing shopping. There's so much going on, getting the house ready for the holidays. And why? Why? All these questions. Why? And that's when he reached down with his right hand. Now, I'm going to tell you that in the interim, as before this, I was flopping around on this thing, kind of like a flounder on a frying pan. And my wife Deb was downstairs in the kitchen, and she heard the banging. and this groaning and yelling. And when she climbed the to our attic, it's a ladder that goes straight up. She came up, she saw me, and I was kind of like flopping around a little, and I don't know. I imagine it was some kind of sparks or smoke coming out of my mouth at that point because the effect afterwards was my fillings arced across my tongue and caused my tongue to burn, and there was stuff going on there. Um, so she saw that, she panicked, she went back down the ladder and called the police. And it turns out that we're about a quarter mile, maybe a third of a mile from the ambulance building, and they couldn't get there. Um, couldn't get here in time. They were up at another call. We're in a small town, so they were at another call. So meanwhile, she they asked if I was alive, if I was breathing. She said she didn't think so. So um, hung up, and they were coming up. Well, lucky she didn't shut the power off because the house would have been dark, the phone wouldn't have worked, all sorts of things. Anyway, she came back up the ladder, and there I was, 3 feet away from the pipe, laying there, and the power never went off. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting because, well, from what I'm told, I'm not an electrician, which you can obviously tell by my story. When you get electrocuted, um, you can't get off of electricity if you're, especially if you're laying on top of it. You're like stuck to it, and every fiber of your body locks. Your muscles work on milliamps or something. I don't know what they are, little amps. And whatever it was, I had many amps, and so therefore I was locked. That created all that sweat pouring, and my muscles locked. I couldn't move. Um, but it's interesting. While this is going on, and I'm having this conversation with God, um, the pain went away, and I really, literally was floating and felt nothing. So she came back up, and now this is the part that goes back now. When I said to him, I love him, he said he loves me too. And I asked why. And that's when he reached down with his right hand and he said, not now. He grabbed my hand, and I could feel the grabbing of my hand. And I went from that pipe to 3 feet away. Take it for what it's worth. Listen, I'm not making any money. Well, not yet anyway, on this story. This story is based on what happened and how it happened. And it was pretty heavy duty. She came back up, and I was laying on the ground, and she said, asked if I was okay. I said, well, to tell you the truth, I think I'm going to die. Um, but I have to get out of the attic. I'm not going to die in the attic. And it was this ladder going down. I don't know why I said that, but I said, I'm not going to die up here in the attic. Who dies in an attic when you could die in your dining room at a nice, comfortable chair? So I managed to get my way down this ladder and collapse into a chair, which time about 20 to 30 minutes later had 20 to 30 minutes had transpired, and the ambulance had arrived. When they got here, my pulse rate was still at 200 and about 220, 230 beats a minute. And the guy was said to me, he says, "Do you exercise a lot?" Well, not, you can't tell by looking at me now, but at that time I said, "Yeah, I ran a lot, and I was bicycles, cyclist." He said, "Well, that explains a lot. That's why your heart can handle this." Um, so uh, I didn't die permanently, and they strapped me to a board thing, and off we went in the ambulance and to the hospital. And my two boys were coming up the street as the ambulance was going down, and they were freaked out. And they actually, it still affects them, and it bothers them, and it scares them. So off to the emergency room we went. So we get in, they rush me in, they get me in, they put me in critical care, and they started doing all stuff. Well, they kept me there, and I guess it turns out that when you get electrocuted, your metals burn out of your body, your magnesium, potassium, etc., iron, and my liver and kidneys started to shut down because, again, another thing I didn't know is that when you get electrocuted, you cook from the inside out, kind of like a microwave. So that was weird. Um, and I didn't know that. And so they started pumping me full of all sorts of stuff to bring me around. And they kept me there for, I don't know, a day or so. And they ended up sending me home, and because there's really not much they could do. And it was overwhelming and a lot of stuff going on at that time when it happened. Um, and it's interesting because I didn't really um, think too much about it at that time. I thought about, wow, I'm surprised I lived. It's amazing that I lived. I'm happy that I lived. My kids were, I think my wife was. Um, no, she was. And it was seriously altering. And I didn't also realize other things that transpired from that. Being a competitive bicyclist, we were doing there's long bicycle rides we did for charity, and I did notice that in the heat, my legs started cramping a lot, and I guess that turns out due to lack of minerals and stuff like that in my body. And in fact, still to date, if I get hit in the nose, I can smell it, which is really bizarre. It's like a burn smell. Has never really left me. So we all healed. We all got better. We got the electrical work fixed, all taken care of, and time goes by. And I've told the story several times, and people are amazed. People are taken back by it. It's like, wow, that death experience. How wow, that's cool. Others are kind of roll their eyes, like, yeah, okay, I've heard this before. Others say, oh, did you become a Christian because of this? This life altering experience? No, none of the above. It was real. It was horrific, uh, and it didn't. Now, did it maybe draw me a little closer to God? Yeah, there's good potential. It did. So anyway, so now it's 20 somewhat years later, and I've written a novel, and it's called The Book, which is separate from this, and which you should buy. It's on Amazon. It's called The Book by John A. Ruel. I recommend you buy it. A lot of people have and liked it. And now I'm writing. Oh, that's the dog. Isn't that a lovely sound? Cody, what is that lovely sound you're making, huh? So the time has gone by. And so now I'm writing a sequel to that. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. If you read the book, I can kind of give you a hint as to what the sequel is about. But in that, I've also written a memoir of what it was like growing up in Ramsey as a kid in the 60s, separate issue. Any of my alumni friends from Ramsey, you want to read that? It's kind of fun. It talks about the things we did, stupid things we did as a kid. I continue to do stupid things, but that was as a kid, the stupid things. Then now in all of this, it dawned on me, and I've really been kind of searching and hunting and trying to figure out what and why and everything about it. So I'm writing a book right now um, called "Why Me: One Man's Quest for Faith," and I'm into it pretty good. But it's really me reflecting back after all this time as to asking God why. Why did this happen? What were you trying to show me? What were you trying to teach me? What were you trying to tell me? Um, I want to know. I want to know what it is. So I ask and I in prayer ask, and in this book I'm asking, but also through this channel that I have here, I'm asking people to put some opinions, some thoughts, maybe some revelations, and maybe even share, like I said, share your experience. If you've had a death experience, if you've had something like that, um, it's kind of neat, and I'd like to hear it. I would really love one day to get like on some sort of a big platform somewhere. I don't know. Perhaps I don't want to say what news channel, but maybe interviewed by a news channel that is named after a reddish colored, bushy uh, animal that runs in the woods. Anyway, something like that. It would be interesting to be on something like that and talk about this experience because it's neat. It's really neat. It's opened my eyes. It's opened a lot of people's eyes. But I'd like to also learn through others and have others learn from me. And my question is to ask God, why did you do this? What are you trying to show me? Where do you want me to be? Where do you want me to use this. I don't want to take this as an event that just happened and disappeared. I want to take this as a learning, growing event and something I can share with others and potentially grow through with them and that they can grow from me. So that's it. That's it for the opening salvo for the why me, my death experience. I will continue on with this YouTube channel, and we'll explore all sorts of things. I'm open to a lot of stuff, folks. I do pottery, I do woodworking, we do some metal work here. I'm into ornithology, bird study, and stuff. I do a lot of fly fishing. We do a lot of camping with an RV. So I'm pretty wide open to discussing all sorts of things. Anything you folks want to tackle with me, let's go. I really appreciate it. And please, if you did like this, hit the like button. I could use that. I want this to expand and grow. I want to be able to touch lives and people. So that's it. So if you could, that'd be great. And until then, ciao. Love you all.